are you guys doing? Let's talk about NXT. 3 count commentaries. I am your host, MagMongoSlade. January the 16th, 2023. NXT was solid. It was actually pretty solid. Can't complain. We're going to talk about Cora Jade's injury and apparently the injury bug floating around WWE. And we're also going to do a short discussion on the Lexis King, aka Brian Pillman Jr. interview from Chris Van Vliet. That will be at the end. But we're going to start with Cora Jade. Over the weekend, which I believe was Saturday, January the 13th, Cora Jade injured herself at a house show wrestling Lyra Valkyria. She tore her ACL. She's going to be out 6 to 9 months. This injury, on top of the injury to Charlotte, on top of the injury to Giovanni Vinci, the injury to Ilya Dragunov that disrupted the show for a short time, has led a lot of people to saying that WWE, there's something wrong in the Performance Center where everybody's getting injured all the time. And I think these injury rashes, they happen every once in a while. But outside of Charlotte, not too many people who are getting injured are like absolutely necessities to the show. But I also think that part of it is, it's Booker T said he thinks it's a style. He doesn't think it's the training. He thinks it's a style. And I think part of that is the case. Sol Ruka, of course, got injured. She's a gymnast. She does a lot of flips and different things like that. Same thing with Nikita Lyons. She tore her ACL, but she, continues to do splits on, with her big body, especially the big bottom half of her body. And you think about that, you say, hey, these kids are putting a lot of stress and strain on their knees and tendons. Maybe they're not properly stretching, maybe they're just doing too much. Who knows? I think that too much is being made of the injuries in WWE right now, especially since a lot of them are like pop tendons in the legs. It's not like a lot of people getting their neck broken or getting concussions, awkward bumps and things like that, even though there is some awkwardness, which we're going to talk about in a second in the first match. There is some awkwardness. So you can blame some of it on the foot of performance. You can also blame, I think, some of it on style. I think people are making too much of it though when it comes to people getting injured in the PC. I think injuries just come with the business. If it was a whole lot of like top level stars, then maybe it would be an issue worth discussing. But considering it's not really that many top level superstars getting injured at one time, I'm not too concerned about it. I think when you have a lot of talent, you have a lot of opportunities for people to get hurt. All right, so let's get into the show. Trick-Melo gang defeated Idris Enofe and Malik Blade in the first round of the Dusty Cup. I am a huge fan of all four of these guys, so I actually watched every second of this. I love this John. This was a good one. Very fun. Booker T was trying to do his comedic chants for Trick Williams, only to find out that they were intersplicing Carmelo Hayes' theme song. So they didn't blend the theme songs, they were alternating the theme songs. And that threw Booker T off, and he became very frustrated because he couldn't get in a groove like he wanted to when it comes to chanting for Trick Williams. And I think the crowd kind of got disappointed in that too. The match was great. I really enjoyed it. Malik Blade does a dive over the top rope, and Trick Williams basically has to slide like a baseball player in order to catch him. Otherwise, Malik Blade would have hit nothing but floor. Boy, I think Trick Williams might have been out of position anyway when that dive occurred. But brother, quick thinking. Well, Trick Williams to dive and catch him. He should get extra points. He should get extra good boy points, a gold star for being alert in that situation. Malik Blade owes him like a drink or something. But the match was fun. Really fun match. Later on, we get the story that they are, Trick-Melo, they're very excited about the idea of going to Vengeance Day, becoming the tag team champions, winning the Dusty Cup, when Ilya Dragunov shows up, apologizes for not being medically clear, saying that medical wouldn't let him fight. And because Trick Williams deserves this opportunity, he deserves this opportunity on a big stage, and says that he's going to get him the championship match at Vengeance Day. So Trick Williams is extremely excited because he's finally going to get the one-on-one match that he was promised. He's going to get it at Vengeance Day. And then Carmelo Hayes was like, wait a minute. We're in the Dusty Cup. We could be wrestling for that. We could be wrestling for the championships at Vengeance Day. And, Trick is like, oh, come on, man. Like, this is what I wanted. This is what I've been waiting for. His excitement. And you get to watch Carmelo Hayes become a little bit more jealous. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit. I'd say like a +5 on the jealousy factor. Later on, Trick Williams apologized for being too excited and says that he wanted to do both. He wants to pull double duty. He's going to wrestle in the Dusty Cup final, and he's going to wrestle Ilya Dragunov for the NXT Championship. Carmelo Hayes suggests that's not a good idea, but Trick Williams is like, oh, no. I want to be Triple Crown Trick. I want you to be a Triple Crown champion. I want to be Triple Crown Trick. I want to be the first person to ever hold a tag team championship and the NXT championship at the same time. And he's so excited by this idea that we get a +6 on the jealousy factor for Carmelo Hayes, because he don't like the look of that. He don't like how that sounds. He don't mind being a tag team champion. He just don't want Trick Williams to be better than him. He don't want that little bit more for Trick. He don't want that. He can have everything he wants. He just don't want Trick to have that little bit more. The fact that we have completely gone off the rails of who hurt Trick Williams is very disappointing, because we never figured out who attacked Trick Williams. It's been months since they did this story. They barely even mention it now. It's not even about who attacked Trick Williams anymore. It's just Carmelo Hayes is jealous of Trick. Okay, so why do we keep got this thing dangling over everybody's head, like who attacked Trick Williams? We need to answer that question. We should have answered that question before we moved on. But whatever. Now we're just in a generic Carmelo Hayes is jealous story. So that's fine. Trick Williams versus Ilya Dragunov ought to be a banger at Vengeance Day. That's going to be hype. Could Trick Williams walk out with both belts, or is he going to walk out with nothing? Both championships, I should say, because I don't think the Dusty Cup Finals is at Vengeance Day. I don't think the championship match is at Vengeance Day. So I certainly don't think he'll walk out with both. I think he's probably more likely to lose both than he is to win both. But it's also more likely that he'll become the NXT champion and lose the tag team cup. And if he loses, he always had a built-in excuse where he had to wrestle twice in one night. And Dragunov is the kind of guy who would give him a rematch after that. So I think that might be a good idea. It's a good storyline element, that's for sure. It's a good storyline addition. I appreciate that. Next, we're going to do the Women's Championship Battle Royal and everything attached to it. Elektra Lopez and Lola Vice. This is very important. I'm going to skip over the Ariana Grace promo, which I think was absolutely fantastic, of her in the locker room cutting this promo. She was so good, but it's not worth spending too much time on. She just gets it in terms of character work and promo. She's nailed this Miss NXT thing. She's probably top 5 in the women's division in NXT without really working. Just the idea of she can go out there and talk. I can see Ariana Grace doing her thing in like the Royal Rumble or something like that, getting booed out of the building, and everybody cheers when she gets thrown over the top rope. Like, that could be something that she could just talk her way to the ring, get in there, get thrown out 5 seconds later, and everybody will remember that she was in there. Like, she is that good, and she's got this thing down. She's very good. Something about being second generation, where it's not in the blood, but it's definitely you getting tips from your parents. In any event, Ariana Grace promo was fantastic for this Battle Royal thing. But Elektra Lopez and Lola Vice, this was an interesting one because they were backstage and Elektra Lopez was talking about winning the Battle Royal and making the Vengeance Day championship match a triple threat match where, Lola Vice could cash in her championship shot and Elektra Lopez would have a shot, and it could be them, the two of them, against Lyra Valkyria. Then Tatum Paxley pops up out of nowhere. She was in like I don't know, like behind a heat vent or something like that. I don't know what the hell she was. It was like one of those things where, I don't know if you ever been to a house where they used to have the something connected from the bathroom to the basement where you slide, dirty clothes down there and it just goes down into the bin in the basement. It's like she was hiding in there or something. In any event, Lyra Valkyria doesn't want, Tatum Paxley doesn't want Lyra Valkyria defending the championship because she's obsessed with her, in love with her, stalking her, who knows. Wants to be her? I don't know. But she's going to win the Battle Royal so that Lyra Valkyria won't have to defend the title. Now, this is an important piece of business because they had a tag team match with Lyra Valkyria and Tatum Paxley. So I think it was the second match on the show. Lyra Valkyria and Tatum Paxley defeat Elektra Lopez and Lola Vice. On Twitter, Lyra Valkyria basically put out a tweet saying that if you see gears of hers for sale, don't buy them because she has stolen gear. And then when you see Tatum Paxley, she's wearing Lyra Valkyria's gear. So she stole her gear and started wearing it. Tatum Paxley gets knocked unconscious pretty much. I think she got kicked in the head by Lola Vice. And she ends up pinning Elektra Lopez. So Elektra Lopez and Lola Vice lost the match to Tatum Paxley and Lyra Valkyria. So this is important because in the Battle Royal, Elektra Lopez is eliminated by Lola Vice. And, Elektra Lopez looks at her afterwards, called her a bitch. Lola Vice gives her some attitude, shakes her booty in her face and all this kind of stuff. And then when she turns around, Tatum Paxley actually eliminates Lola Vice. At that point, Lola Vice and Elektra Lopez start to fight outside the ring. Now, this is a great development because you see from the way they've been trying to tell the story the last couple of weeks that Lola Vice was being sort of nasty and distant from Elektra Lopez. Elektra Lopez is always trying to find ways where they work together. They remain friends. You're going to use your championship match to get us a tag team title shot. All these kinds of things. And, even in the triple threat idea, she wasn't trying to leave Lola Vice behind. But Lola Vice was kind of like, And then, they lose all the time. And it's almost always Elektra Lopez who loses. So you see, like, this thing has been bubbling for a while. And to do it in this Battle Royal was very interesting. I like this. That was very good storytelling. Other good elements of this Battle Royal, Kalani Jordan, she pulled a Kofi Kingston where she got knocked outside of the ring, but she ended up landing on the announce desk. And she just basically hung out on the announce desk pretty much for the rest of the night until it was near the end. Maddie Ranowski, who was Ren Sinclair. What kind of name is Ren? I don't know. It's very unique. I don't know. Is that like a Irish name or something? If I Google the word Ren, what am I going to get? Let's try that. Okay, so a wren is a bird. It's a small, tiny bird. Wrens are a family of brown passerine birds in the predominantly New World family Troglodytidae. Oh my God, never mind. They're birds. So she's named after a bird. All right. It's not as stupid as I thought. I thought it was like Irish mythology or some shit. But she's taken the spot of Cora Jade. So she's in this match. She gets eliminated, so it doesn't really matter much. Blair Davenport was eliminated by Carmen Petrovich after the match. After she was eliminated, she attacked Carmen Petrovich and made it easier for her to get eliminated. The final four, which, the match turned into a fatal four-way once the last four people were in the ring, were Kalani Jordan, Fallon Henley, Roxanne Perez, and Kiana James. And from that, Roxanne Perez wins the match. She is the number one contender for the women's title at Vengeance Day. I'm not thrilled. Look, I guess from a wrestling perspective, a match perspective, maybe Roxanne Perez is a good choice. I think from a character perspective, you need to have some personality somewhere in this match. She's not the best choice, you know. Certainly would have preferred, you know, I know Ariana Grace is, even though I think she's probably like the best character next to Tiffany Stratton, she's not in a position where you take her seriously as a wrestler yet. She's still in sort of the Miz stage where she's comedy, she loses, she gets egg on her face, you laugh at her, and then she, you know, bounces right back. She's elastic. You needed somebody who's a little bit more solid in terms of character work. But they decided to go with a tried and true. They decided to go with Roxanne Perez. I don't hate it. I just don't love it. So Roxanne Perez and Lyra Valkyria will be a good in-ring match. It's probably going to be dull as dishwater, but it's going to be a good in-ring match at least. Oddly enough, Tiffany Stratton was not in this battle royal. At least I don't remember seeing her in this battle royal. I wonder if there was a reason for that. Apparently also her sentence as a ranch hand is also over. So it must have been a 1 week thing, but they were still doing it on the house shows. There's pictures of Tiffany Stratton still hanging out with Fallon Henley on the house shows. And you know what? I had an idea that might have been pretty cool. I'm a pitch it here. I hate doing like fan fiction sometimes because so many wrestling fans do it. But I always had the idea that when you do something like the winner has to be the loser's ranch hand or servant or whatever, slave, that it would be a good place for a double turn. Like imagine that if, you know, Fallon Henley was such a bitch and Tiffany Stratton was doing everything that she was asking her to do, but she was being such a horrible bitch to her that it actually turned Tiffany Stratton into a babyface and made Fallon Henley the heel. Like that was something that you could have done in a story. You could do that in any story where the bad guy is getting their comeuppance, but then you get to the point where the good guy is going overboard, and then you swap places where you actually start feeling more sympathy for the heel, who is actually the honorable person and living up to what they said that they would do. But the babyface is going overboard. And that's why I always say things have to be proportional. But I like the story as it was. I just didn't know what the length of the thing was going to be. You know, and I think it would have been nice if they did a double switch there. It would have been, I mean, Fallon Henley, she's not terrible, but I've never seen her in a heel position. And I think people are okay with Tiffany Stratton if she was to be a babyface. I don't know how you would book that, you know, especially long term with that character, but it would be interesting. I guess you could lean more in towards her work ethic and the fact that she is a posh princess, but she does, you know, get busy. She has dedicated her life to gymnastics, and she's now dedicated her life to wrestling, and people will respect that and get behind that if that's what you chose to do. And that would be like one thing that you could have played with, is that Tiffany Stratton is a perfectionist. And if she's going to have to, you know, clean stalls, she's going to be good at it, or she wants to be the best at it, or whatever the case may be. That's one of the things that you could have played with that could have worked within the body of the character. That's just me fan fictioning though. But Tiffany Stratton wasn't in here. Now we're going to talk about, from Tiffany Stratton, one of my favorites, to another one of my favorites, Obafemi. Obafemi comes out wearing the Batista hookup. He's wearing a white turtleneck. My goodness. He's a giant. They did a NXT, I don't know if it was an NXT Anonymous, but it was something backstage, and Javier Bernal, big body Javi, who you haven't seen a lot of him, he's backstage, he's on the phone, and Obafemi was coming in his direction. He said, move. And Javier Bernal is taking a little too long to move. Like, I'm not going to ask you again. I like this. So Obafemi comes out talking about, you know, the prophecy of being the juggernaut draped in gold. He was an embodiment of a war leader. He said he was tested And as a young Nigerian prince, he was tested by his opposition. He crushed them. He was tested by the NCAA. He made that place his own. And now he has this championship. He has a divine right to rule over everybody in NXT. Dragon Lee comes out. He's very small compared to Obafemi. He's very small. He's very tiny. A very tiny man. Says he doesn't blame him. He knows that he was young and hungry. Says that the title represents opportunity. He was hoping that Obafemi would continue the tradition that he continued from Wes Lee and do an open challenge. And if he was going to do that, then Dragon Lee would accept that open challenge tonight. Obafemi says no. the era of open challenges is over. So then Dragon Lee says, okay, well, I want my championship rematch that I earned at Vengeance Day. And Obafemi says that he will consider it. When you listen to the Obafemi promo, it's so natural. And then the crowd is getting into it, doing like the Spartan, whoo, you know, like it's great. Like the NXT fans are starting to make this shit their own, which has always been what the NXT fans did. Except for they had subpar talent to do this kind of stuff with before. Now we actually got, you know, people who might actually make you some money in the future. So Obafemi, the first NIL signing to win a championship. He's natural in terms of how he speaks. He's very clear despite his accent. He's a monstrous guy. And guess what? He's only going to get better. That's the crazy thing. He's not going to get any worse. You know, he's not going to get worse than he is right now. He's going to get better. So if he can stay injury free, this guy is going to print some money. This guy is going to be good. And he's going to have a match with Dragon Lee. That's going to be good too. I like the idea of that. All right, Eddie Thorpe is backstage. He's trying to inspire people. You know, if people are trying to make fun of your culture, I'm sorry, the LGBT Tatanka. If everybody's going to try to make fun of your culture, and like, and then Trey Bearhill shows up, and Trey Bearhill is the triple XL Tatanka, very big Tatanka, and they introduce each other, and Bearhill thanks him for representing their culture and all that, but they're from two different tribes, so they introduced their tribe and all this kind of stuff. I don't remember none of that. I ain't write none of that down. It doesn't matter. Dijak comes in, immediately calls the conversation between the two of them a powwow, to which Bearhill is offended. He's very upset. Then he challenges Dijak to a match. He loses that match, and that was entertaining to me. The racism of calling a conversation between two Native Americans a powwow, that popped me. It's probably the only time I've ever been popped by a Dijak. I was not interested in the Dijak versus Trey Bearhill match, though. I could take or leave that. As a matter of fact, I could leave it. I'm not a big fan of those guys. Joe Gacy was on commentary during this match, being very annoying. Booker T is such good at his job that I'm pretty sure his disgust at Joe Gacy being there was a work, because he is very good at his job despite the fact that he doesn't know any moves. He has enthusiasm, which is very important. So after the match, Gacy attacks Dijak for seemingly no goddamn reason. I don't remember any reason why he would attack Dijak. He just did it. This is a thing. Joe Gacy literally has nothing to do. I mean, this poor fucking guy, man. He is in limbo. Joe Gacy is like 33 or 34. It's time to get out of NXT, bro. It's time to go. Like, this guy, ever since that whole thing with the Grizzly Young Veterans and The Rock's daughter fell apart, he's been floating about. It's time to probably move him up to the main roster. I think he's a little old to be hanging around in NXT, and I think that he needs a new environment. So Joe Gacy apparently is going to have matches with Dijak. Oh, brother, that sucks. Trey Bearhill is watching this fight occur, still kind of pissed off about losing, when he's attacked from behind by Lexis King, who kicks his ass for costing him championship matches and costing him matches in the Dusty Cup. So we're going to continue the Trey Bearhill Lexis King fiasco, and they're going to fight next week. Okay. Big fan of this Lexis King thing. I'm enjoying that. I like that this guy has seemingly found something that he's invested in. All right, next, Ridge Holland is defeated by Joe Coffey. I don't care. I don't think anybody cares. This match probably got at least amount of interest on the show. It's just a match thrown in the middle of the show. Sad to say. I don't know what to tell you. NXT Anonymous catches JC Jane backstage with all these girls, and they're doing something. I don't know what they're doing, but JC Jane is involved, so it can't be good. And she actually starts trying to tell some other young lady she's going to buy her drinks and get her number. So they definitely up to no goddamn good. So Chase University, that would be Duke Hudson and Riley. I forget what his last name is. Chalmers? That's not. I made that up. I don't know what his last name. Oh, it's Osborne. Okay. Anyway, Riley Osborne. They're defeated by the LWO in the Dusty Cup Classic. Joaquin Wilde does a tope suicida into a tornado DDT. It was absolute chaos. What a spot. The LWO actually win the match. I was surprised to see that. I was surprised to see that they won something. So the LWO will be wrestling Trick-Melo gang in the next round. So Chase U will not be making any money off the Dusty Cup. They took that big fat L. It's very unfortunate. So I don't know what's going on with Chase University, but we'll get to the bottom of it eventually. Baron Corbin and Brian Breaker had a segment backstage. Boy, oh boy, they're doing comedy. That's what we're doing. We're doing comedy. So Baron Corbin thinks he's the leader of the team. He's the veteran. He thinks he led the team to victory. Brian Breaker, who says that Baron Corbin sent him a text telling him to be at the arena at the wrong time for the promo segment. The promo segment was at 9. The text says 9:30. So, but Brian was smart enough to show up anyway. He's wearing his dad's jacket from what it looks like. So Brian Breaker decides that he saved Baron Corbin, and he named the team the Wolf Dogs. And Corbin hates the name. He doesn't like the name Wolf Dogs. Asked him how long did it take for him to come up with this name. He said 3 weeks. And Baron Corbin's like, we've only been a team for 2 weeks. And Brian Breaker says he was thinking about this in the shower. And Corbin says, you was thinking about me in the shower? That was a second pop in this. I just hear Cameron and Mace pause. So Baron Corbin, as the team leader, says that you can't think about him in the shower, and he's vetoing the name Wolf Dogs. So they have to come up with something else. And since Brian Breaker is the creative guy, he's got to come up with the team name. He came up with Wild Boars, which sounds even worse than Wolf Dogs. So they're putting Brian Breaker in comedy roles now to sort of stretch his personality. Okay, I guess showing as much of his personality as you can is fine. I mean, we've seen this guy go fishing on this show. It's like, this is not worse than him and Apollo Crews going fishing together like good friends. But they're trying to build I don't want to say bromance, but that's the best thing that you could come, a buddy situation between Baron Corbin and Brian Breaker. And it's kind of fun, if we're being honest. I actually like it. Noam Dar. So Noam Dar is still walking around with the Heritage Cup. He runs into the Cro-Magnon, Von Wagner. And Von Wagner doesn't know what the Heritage Cup is, despite the fact that it's been on the show for almost a year. Noam Dar tells him what it is, and he says, I have a cup too. And he throws his cup for his nutsack into the Heritage Cup. And this offends young Noam Dar. So Von Wagner says he wants a shot at the Heritage Cup. Noam Dar knows he's a big dumb brute. Tells him that there's special rules to this thing. You just can't challenge for it. So Von Wagner wants to know what the rules are. So Noam Dar tries to explain to him the rules of the Heritage Cup. But Von Wagner he's a Geico caveman. So he can't get it. He's not figuring out how to win a Heritage Cup championship match. And Noam Dar gets frustrated and leaves. He says, hey, no, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not going to give you a shot at this thing. We're done. We're out of here. And he takes off. So Noam Dar is going to end up having to wrestle Von Wagner for the Heritage Cup. Okay, at least Von Wagner is back on TV. He disappeared randomly out of nowhere after doing some really fun stuff at Robert Stone's house. He disappeared for like 3 weeks. So him wrestling Noam Dar, I'm not a huge fan of it, but okay, whatever floats your boat. Josh Briggs is watching his match on a tablet when good old JBL strolls up next to him, and they do a little bit of a face-to-face, and Briggs is as big as JBL. I know JBL probably lost like a couple of inches in height since he's aged, but Briggs is bigger than JBL. So apparently JBL is the one who picked Josh Briggs for the, what was that, the Iron Survivor Challenge. And then he says, do you know why I picked you? And he was like, nope, I have no idea. Because you see, he's like, because I see your potential. Then he talked about his story of, putting down the APA and showing people who he really is, becoming a wrestling god in John Bradshaw Layfield. And he picked Josh Briggs because he wants Josh Briggs to do the same thing. He wants Briggs to go on a spiritual journey to figure out who he really is. And I thought this was very effective. Very effective use of JBL here. I don't think JBL needs to be with him every week. I certainly don't think. I think it'll become a crutch at that point. And I think JBL has also been damaged with the Baron Corbin situation, and it didn't really work out. In fact, it was so bad that it actually damaged both of them. It's rare that a gimmick is so terrible that everybody involved is lessened. But in this situation, the Happy Corbin situation was so bad, it damaged JBL and it damaged Baron Corbin. So him just giving words of advice and giving a mission to Josh Briggs, like show me who you really are, show everybody who you really are, is important. I like that. And it might actually make Josh Briggs interesting at some point in the future. So I'm down for that. Now we get into the piece of business, the Chris Van Vliet interview with Lexis King, aka Brian Pillman Jr. We're going to listen to a couple of outtakes from this thing. For instance, his struggles in AEW. This one I think was very interesting. It was very enlightening. And I also don't think it's the dig that a lot of WWE fans think that so many months of Jesus. They don't. It's not the dig you think it is. But I want to play this.
Spent so many months of my career at the previous company just second guessing myself. Like, am I really any good? Am I worth it? A lot of self-doubt. And just to see how my career has done a total 180 since then. I went from just sitting in the back and filming a few dark matches to now I'm sitting in a throne and I'm making my entrance. Hell, they gave me the name King. You know what I mean? He doesn't get any better.
All right. So he talked about struggling in AEW, and we all saw it. I mean, if you watch NXT, you probably watched Dynamite, and you was probably watching Dynamite during the pandemic. Therefore, you probably saw Brian Pillman Jr. with, Griff Garrison and Julia Hart struggling to even make television. And again, I had saw Brian Pillman in MLW. I knew he could do something. I didn't know how far he could go, and I'm not saying that he's reached his maximum potential yet. I know he's even in his 30s, but I'm not saying he's reached his maximum potential yet. I'm just saying I knew there was something with the guy. Guy had something. AEW didn't even try. And, they didn't even try, bro. It was sad that he spent most of his time just sitting on the bench doing nothing. They gave him almost no shot from the beginning. This is the kind of stuff you used to hear about with WWE. And this is why I said it's not the dig and the dunk that people have said that it is. Because, there's plenty of young guys who went to TNA or left WWE, went to the Indies. They would say the same thing. I was sitting in catering week after week, doing nothing, not giving a shot. Nobody's talking about me. Nobody cares about me. What do? Eventually it does wear on you mentally. So I thought it was very interesting because now you're starting to hear. I don't want to say that he's like one of the young guys, but he is a younger guy who got brought into AEW, and 3 years he was there. He said it was a couple of months. It was 3 years, bro. I think he got signed in 2020, right during the pandemic or right after the pandemic. No, it was during the pandemic. Maybe, yeah, it was during the pandemic because he got into AEW through the loophole in MLW contracts where they listed companies that you couldn't work for, which is basically companies with television. And AEW didn't exist at the time, so he was able to slip through. But ultimately, they didn't even really give him a chance. He went through this whole, and now the fans hate him. The AEW fans really hate him. Oh, they hate him so much. You think he was fucking their girlfriends? I cannot believe. They hate this man that much. I can't find any other audio without playing the interview. But he also said something about pitches that I want to discuss too. So he said that John Cena did a seminar in the PC. He's probably giving away too much here, but this is very interesting. He says it wasn't just questions like that people would ask. I mean, basically like wrestling questions. He said we were talking about contract negotiations and this kind of stuff. It was amazing the amount of questions we were able to get answered. One of the coolest things he said was, you can't control the booking or who is wearing the belt, but you can be the best version of said character. And he says he was the rapper guy. If you're the best rapper guy on the roster, creative goes, we want the rapper guy to take on a huge monster. They're going to pick the best rapper guy and put him against the best monster character. I'll never pitch an idea again. He said there's no point in pitching an idea. If you pitch something and they don't use it, now you're disappointed and upset. If you just be the best version of your character and they decide to use you for these things that they created because they are the writers and they come up with these ideas, they don't want you pitching stuff. They want to come up with it because it's their job. It's a contract from the company I was at where that was our success came from because there is not much of a writing team there. I had successful pitches at AEW. At WWE, we have people for that. We have writers and creative. We don't have to pitch stuff. We just have to be the best in-ring performers and the mic performers and be the best rock and roll, conniving, look at me, pick me kind of guy. If I'm the best dirtbag that they have and dress like a rock and roll wannabe, they're going to pick me for that role. I'm not going to go to the office. I really want to go do a program and so. I'll never do that again. John Cena told me he never pitched an opponent in his entire career. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how true that is from John Cena, but when you look back at it, there might be some elements of truth to it. Cena was known for being a pretty good soldier and just did whatever he was told to do. And that was pretty much it. He didn't really ask too many questions. He just went out and did the best that he could. If he had to wrestle John Laurinaitis, he did the best that he could. If he had to wrestle Brock Lesnar, he did the best that he could. And, he let the chips fall where they may. But so I don't know if you want to be a guy who just sits back and says, you know what? I don't have any ideas for you. Can't help you. I do think you need to have a hand in your own career, especially if you're doing nothing. And one of just, I don't think it was in that quote that I read because I forgot the quote already. That's how tired my brain is. He didn't mention at all in that quote that one of his successful pitches was the Varsity Blondes. He came up with that dumb shit. I can't believe it. It's dumb. It was really dumb. But I guess he's just trying to do something to get on TV. So he says he's not going to pitch ideas. He's just going to be the best version of himself. Focus on that. And then let the writers get paid to write. Which is, I don't see a problem with that either. The writers do get paid to write. If you're going to do their job, what the hell are they going to need to be there for? And if they're not going to use your ideas, well, we know that there's plenty of people who used to say, oh man, I would go to them with ideas and they would take it and give it to somebody else. I think Lindsay Dorado just did an interview recently when he said that. He came up with all these cool ideas, and the writing staff would take them and give them to somebody else, and they would piss him off. And it's like, well, I agree. You know, that would piss me off too. That would upset me because you're trying to further your own career. But it's like being in Motown. You write a song, it doesn't necessarily mean it's your song. It could go to anybody under the Motown umbrella. And, you know, whoever Barry Gordy decides is going to sing that record is going to sing that record. That's kind of how the music business works. And wrestling is the same way. You come up with the coolest character in the world, and they say, hey, I don't think this fits you. It fits this other guy more. Then that other guy gets the gimmick, and you look like a fool. You know, you might get the credit for coming up with it, but ultimately, you're not going to be the character that you want to be. So that might be a good reason why you wouldn't pitch an idea, because you don't want them to steal it and give it to somebody else. But the bad thing is that unless you pitch an idea, you could end up just floating about similar to how he was in AEW. Remember, the New Day, despite the fact that I hate it so much today, was these guys who weren't doing anything. You know, they had to pitch that idea. They had to put, you know, some skin in the game. You know, that's an important piece of business too. You have to take ownership of the character. That means you have to do some pitching. You have to, you know, get involved. So I wouldn't say never pitch anything. I would say to let the people whose job that is do their job. And if they suck at it, then, you know, they're no different than most other people who suck at their job. But I don't think I think he's saying now I'll never pitch anything because he's constantly being used. If he wasn't being used, I don't think he would have the idea that I'm never going to pitch anything. It's going to definitely do a 180 if he's never being used. But right now he's being used, so that's a also John Cena talking with them about contract negotiations. Like, that's crazy. You know, like, is he sharing his agent's number in there or something? Like, what's going on? What you doing, Big Matt's John? All right, guys. Lexis King. I don't know if I want to watch the whole thing in terms of the Lexis King Chris Van Vliet thing. Just some interesting elements that he came up with that I thought was interesting. But I don't want to listen to the whole thing. I very rarely listen to wrestlers do interviews unless there's a specific topic that I want to hear a lot about. And this one doesn't really have that, but it's interesting, you know. So check it out. All right, thank you guys for your time. Hope you guys enjoyed NXT because I did. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.